Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm here with another weekly wrap up. I'm going to go over all the books that I read this last week. I have 7 books to talk about and I had some really great reads this week. So let's go ahead and quickly dive into my weekly reads. Okay everyone, so I'm going to try and be a little quick in this video, but we know that usually never happens. But I have a few videos I have to film today and I'm trying to prep a little bit ahead of time for some videos that are coming up soon. But I'm really excited because I'm finally getting a vacation and I really need it because this work week was insane. I was very stressed out because my supervisor is actually on a leave of absence. And then we had a bunch of people in training and we barely had any coverage. And so it was a stressful week. And that's kind of why I didn't get as much reading done as I wanted to, but still 7 books ain't too shabby. So I'm pretty happy with that. Again, another week of mostly audiobooks because it was just really hard to focus on reading. So I was listening to a lot more audiobooks. So, but my vacation is coming up this week. I'm starting Monday, and I'm going back to work next week, obviously. But I was so excited because my brother and his family always go down to Mexico. They love going down there and they actually invited me along. So I'm so excited. I'm going to be going with my brother and his family and my mom. And we're just going to go down for the week, stay in a house down there. And it's just going to be a blast. So I'm hoping I'll get a lot of reading done. But sometimes, you know, that backfires when you're on vacation. You think you'll have plenty of time to read. And then you don't really read as much as you think. So anyways, let's get started with these reads. So I read 7 books. This is all the books that I read from the 6th through the 12th. And we're going to start off with a ALC. I am on the ALC team for Giana Darling, which is just so fantastic. I love Giana Darling, and I'm so excited that I'm on that team. So I actually got the ALC for My Dark Fairy Tale. Now, this is actually, I believe, just going to be a duet. I don't know if it'll be a full series, but I did not know that going in, that this was like, had a cliffhanger. So just be prepared. That I don't think it's coming out for another 6 months or even longer. I'm not sure. I need to look up when the next book is coming out. So if you don't want to dive into this yet, because it does leave you on a cliffhanger, you know, you might want to wait. But honestly, like, it's not too crazy of cliffhanger, and I just loved it. So this is the first book in the My Mafia Romance duet. And this is between Guinevere and Rafa. And what I loved about this was so much of just like the summer in Italy, like traveling to Italy, the Italian countryside, all those vibes are in this so beautifully. Like, Giana Darling is a wonderful writer. She writes so beautifully, and I just felt her love for, you know, Italy and all that. Like, that's the one place, like, I want to travel there so bad. So I loved all those vibes in this book because Guinevere is actually just traveled by herself to Italy. It's her parents, like her father's home country, and she actually was very sheltered and very kind of controlled by her parents because she was sick as a child and she had like surgeries and just, it was very touch and go for her. So like her dream was always to go to Italy, and her parents never really wanted her to. So I'm sure we're going to learn more why probably later in the next book. But this was her dream, so she basically went to Italy to go travel, stay there for the summer or whatever, and she lied to her parents about it. I think they think she's going to like France or something. But things don't start off great for her because her car, I think it like ran out of gas or broke down. I can't remember. It might have been gas. And she's on the side of the road, and a man stops to help her, and she's thinking, okay, this could be dangerous, but maybe he's trying to help me. And he brings up having a daughter, so then she's kind of being a little bit more trusting. This girl is very young. She's very naive. She's very sheltered, so just take that with a grain of salt when you read this book. But this guy starts to attack her. He's going to rape her. And so she manages to get away, and she's cutting through these fields, and she runs out into the road and accidentally gets kind of like slightly hit by Rafa. He's driving his car. Obviously, he did not mean to hit her, but he basically takes her to his home, to his villa, and she ended up getting really sick after this too. So she's there kind of on the mend, and he ends up just letting her stay there. Like, he's very smitten with this young, American woman, and he's very attracted to her. But he is the capo of the Camorra in northern Italy. And so she has no idea that he is actually part of the mafia. Now, a lot of this, there's so many signs of him being part of the mafia, but she's so gullible and like naive, she doesn't even catch on. But basically, we got like kind of like this billionaire, suave, sexy Italian that sweeps her off her feet and takes care of her, like buys her beautiful clothes and jewelry, and he's just like woos her. And so she really falls hard for him, but she doesn't know if she's going to return home or what's going to happen. And there's obviously going to be some dangerous elements that come into play with him being in the mafia. He's worried about her safety at one point, so he wants her to stay, because we're getting to that point near the end of like, she wants him to ask her to stay. But now her life could be in danger because people in power are seeing how important she is to him. And so he's going to kind of let her go because her life is in danger. And then all this shit hits the fan near the end, and we end on a cliffhanger. So I'm not going to go into too much of that, but I loved this. The audiobook was fantastic. This was narrated by Dane Anderson and CJ Bloom, and his accent was fantastic. I loved it. It was very spicy. Giana Darling knows how to bring the spice. It was kind of like a slower burn, which I appreciated, because the last book I listened to of hers, it was like smut was happening within like the first chapter. And this, it was like a slower burn to them finally being like sexual with each other. So I really felt their connection, and just like, I loved the vibes. Like, he takes her to do like this wine tasting and on like a wine tour, and I just loved it. I've already got my rosé right now, and I just love going to wine tastings, and I just love the Italy vibes. I loved it. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. It gave me everything I wanted, and I think it's a really good, like, low angst, spicy, kind of introduction, maybe, if you're not into so much mafia. There's some mafia stuff in here, but I feel like it's pretty mafia light. It's more on like those other type of vibes. So I would definitely recommend this one. So again, 5 stars, 3.5 chilies, and had a great time with that one. Okay, so then I read The Coldest Passion by Victoria Lum. Now, if you don't know, I am on Victoria Lum's ARC team, and I've been loving her current series. I had only read the last book in this series, so I wanted to go back and read her first books, because the previous book I had read last month, and it didn't blow me away. It was The Sweetest Agony, but it was her first book, and it was a Friends to Lovers, which is, I'm really, really, really picky about. So I could definitely see that was her first book, and then this one was so much better. I loved it so much, and it has a lot of the stuff that I love that Victoria does in her writing, which is she is able to build so much tension, sexual tension, chemistry, like angst, and like a slow burn. And that's what this one had. And so this one was so much better than her first one. So I was so impressed with just the improvement that she made from those books, because Victoria Lum has only actually been writing for a couple years, And she's got quite a few books out. So she's got this LA Heart series, which I'm sorry, this is the second book in LA Heart series. And then she's got her current series that I'm in the middle of right now, which is like the Orchid series, which I fucking love. So anyways, I read this one because I am reading her backlist and I'm trying to help promote her stuff because, you know, with stuff happening with Kindle and people banning, you know, Amazon and stuff, we want to get more attention on these books and these independent authors that really need help promoting their books. But anyways, sorry, that's a side thing. So anyways, the coldest passion is between Parker and Liz. And Parker was introduced in the first book. He was actually the hot, like, guy that the heroine went on a date with, that he was like, had everything going for him, but you could tell he had like a lot of sadness in him because he was a widower. And she had went on a date with him, and then the guy was all jealous that was in love with her. That was her friend. So we met him in that one. And then Liz is one of their friends. It's funny because the hero from the first one at first like did not like Parker, but they become best friends. And that hero, Liz is his little sister. So the thing is you notice in that first book that when Parker meets Liz, he's like immediately kind of freaks out and he like doesn't like her. He's very cold to her. And you have no idea why, because Liz is just this ray of sunshine. She has no idea, why does he hate me? Why does he treat me like crap? Like, I don't understand it. So we kind of have a little bit of an enemies or hate to love situation here. Now, Parker is a single father. His wife died in an accident, and he has a lot of trauma from and guilt from her death. And there are reasons of why he was basically hating on Liz. I don't want to say here because I don't want to ruin everything for you, but he quickly realizes, you know, as things progress in the story, that he really didn't hate her. He was putting his anger onto her and not dealing with his issues with himself, because he does have a lot of anger about what happened to his wife. So in this, he actually needs a nanny, and Liz is a school teacher. She actually teaches his daughter, and they have like such a sweet relationship, and she's going to be off for the summer for teaching, and she needs to make a little bit of extra money. So she ends up taking the job with Parker. Her friends are like trying to push her into being his nanny, and so she's going to be living with him for a few months. At first, she was like, I'm not doing it. Like, you treat me like crap. You're extremely rude to me, so I'm not going to do it. But he eventually talks her into it, and so they end up in this forced proximity situation. She is living with him and his daughter. Now, I loved the relationship she built with his daughter. It was so beautiful. She was just so amazing. And so Parker, watching him with her daughter, just seeing what a good person she is, his walls start to crumble, and he realizes, you know, he's really falling for her. So they have this slow burn and this tension and angst that's built throughout this book. And when they finally start to get together, Parker is holding back some secrets that are going to have some big repercussions when they are revealed. So that leads to kind of like the third act conflict. But I loved the tension between these two, the chemistry they had, the dynamic they built together as like this little family. I loved how good he was to his daughter, and he was just so sweet. And, you know, he came off cold and would give her these hot and cold like feelings of like push and pulling with her, you know. But once he goes all in, it's so hot. Like, this guy has a dirty mouth on him. I freaking loved it. The spice went way up in this book compared to the previous book, and I just felt their chemistry and like their connection so much more. So this one was a lot better than the first book, and I really loved it. So I'm very excited to continue. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and then 3.5 chilies because it brought up the spice, and he's got a dirty mouth on him. So I don't know if Victoria Lum has done, I don't think she's done any audiobooks. I need to reach out to her to ask, like, because I would love to listen to these as audiobooks too. I'm just envisioning like Teddy Hamilton's voice doing that dirty talk and it'd be perfection, because I have Teddy Hamilton. I listened to him this week and it was amazing. Okay, so then I listened to another ALC, and I listened to Wicked Love by Willow Aster. Now, this is the 4th book in the Single Dad Playbook series, and I've loved this series. The previous one I didn't love as much, and I think it was because there were so many flashbacks, and it was like a second chance, and it was just kind of like friends to lovers. Wasn't really fully vibing with me a little bit. But this one is like probably like my second favorite in the series. This is between Bowie and Poppy. And in this, we have Bowie. Obviously, he is a single dad. His daughter has Down syndrome, and he is just the most tender, loving father to her. He's very protective over her. I love their relationship and how much, how devoted he is to his daughter. But he comes off a little grumpy, a little standoffish because of the shit that happened to him with her mother, and like kind of like abandoning her and not being a part of his daughter's life. And so he's just like not really looking for a relationship. He's very standoffish, very broody. But he's a good guy underneath all of that. And then we have Poppy, and she is like a newer friend to this group of girls that are all with these football players. She also does, I think she worked at one of those like places that works with kids with special needs and all that kind of stuff. So she was running into him in that places, but he was very like distant, kind of broody with her. So she never really thought anything would happen between them. Until they were at one of the other characters' their wedding. They ended up getting a little drunk. They were having a good time together. They were dancing and having a great time. And then there was a mix-up with her room where she didn't have a room or whatever, and he happened to be behind her. And so he offers her to stay with him. And so he's like actually in a suite with his daughter. His daughter was already like went to bed up there. So they end up sharing a bed, and things lead to some spicy times. And so they have a one-night stand. Now, his reaction after the one-night stand wasn't the best. He was very regretful and kind of like standoffish with her. And so she felt kind of like hurt by that. So it was just a tough go for that. But of course, what we end up happening is a accidental pregnancy. And so she finds out she's pregnant, and she's very nervous, doesn't know how to break the news to him. And it happens too where like she kind of hides it from him for a little bit, but you kind of understand why. The way she reveals it is just a little awkward and all over the place. But they actually started to like really talk again, and they were hitting it off and kind of wanting to see each other. And then she was going to have to break the news to him that, yes, I'm pregnant. So I really loved this. I loved her connection to his daughter and how sweet she was. I loved watching this grumpy sunshine, romance. It was just very sweet. These are very like low angst, sweet single dad books. And I just really love this series. I couldn't recommend it enough. So, it was just very sweet. So this one was narrated by J.F. Harding and Samantha Brentmore. It was dual narration, but we had duet narration with Lily D. Moore, because she would narrate as the daughter with Down syndrome throughout the entire audiobook, which I thought was a really great choice. I loved it. I thought she did such a great job. I loved all of the narrators together. It was such a perfect audiobook. So another one that is like a new favorite to me. I just love watching a dad, step up, and he already had his amazing being a single dad. And then now he's going to help her through her pregnancy. And I just always love that in the accidental pregnancy books. So I ended up giving that one 5 stars and 3 chilies. So you can see I've had so many 5 stars this week. I feel like it looks like I'm just handing out 5 stars, but there were so many good books this week. So I had a great reading week. Okay, so then I have another ALC. And again, I don't know. you guys are going to think I'm just giving out 5 stars because I gave 5 stars to this one too. But this was Someday You Learn by Harlow James. And this is the 4th book in the Carrington Cove series. And this one I just really loved. This is kind of like a one-night stand, fake engagement type of situation. In this, we have Parker. I have another Parker. This is Parker and Cashlyn's romance. And so Parker and Cashlyn actually met when they were on a plane together, and she was having a panic attack, kind of freaking out, and he helps her through her panic attack situation, and they end up having a one-night stand together, but she kind of like bails early. And I think it's like about a year later, but basically she knew who he was. He didn't really know who she was. And she kind of figured out who he was because he works for her father. He is a vet, and her father owns a practice in Carrington Cove. And she has not been living, in the hometown or anything. But she returns home, and she happens to tell her dad that she's engaged to Parker. And he's like, what the F? Like, what is going on here? And Parker is in kind of a tough situation because he's actually trying to prove himself so that he ends up getting the practice from her father because he's set to retire soon. And so he's like competing against another guy. And so she just kind of throws it out there that they're engaged, and it's all really to like cover up for like her real reason for returning home. I think her father like wanted her to be a lawyer, I think it was, but she really loved being an artist, and she wanted to open up like an art gallery in the town and everything. And she knew her dad just didn't support her dreams. So she was kind of using this engagement as like a reason for her to come back home and then kind of hide what she's really up to. Seems a little far-fetched, but I just went with it in this book. I just loved it because then she also needs a place to stay. So she's living with him, and, they basically are kind of just like helping each other out. She's trying to help him with like getting the job and getting her dad's practice and everything. And he's like super supportive of her dreams. And so they're kind of like good friends here, but they have so much chemistry, and she really wants something else to happen between them. And it's so funny because his like sister is like telling her how to like and like basically entrance him and like flirt with him and show her body and do like these little things so that she could seduce him to get back with her. So it's spicy. They had some really amazing connection. And they're trying to like keep their fake engagement under wraps because it could have bad consequences for him. And there's just a lot that goes into it near the end where like when her dad is going to figure things out, this other coworker is trying to like threaten him to reveal things. So there's a lot of like drama going on there. But what I loved about this was Parker did not want to be in a relationship. He had a really bad experience with his previous relationship, and he had a lot of guilt and like trauma from it. And in this, and this is why I love this book and why it became a 5-star for me, was that he started to go to therapy and started to really actively work on that because he wanted to be his best self and be healthy and in a good state of mind for this relationship. And so what I loved was the therapy and the mental health representation in this, because so many times in books, they just like, oh, they got better. Oh, they went to the therapist. It's barely brought up. And this, we're seeing him actively go into therapy. We're seeing those conversations with his therapist. I thought they were so, like, it was so well done, those conversations and what the therapist was getting him to, like, work on and do homework and think through things. And so I just really, really appreciated that. And then, like, the conflict at the end, doesn't lead to this whole, like, huge breakup or anything. Like, they really talk through things. Like, they were just very respectful for each other. So I really, really loved this. And then, of course, it was narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Emma Wilder. And Teddy Hamilton brought it as always. He's so sexy. He does the perfect narration. He brings so much to his performances. And so I freaking loved it. So I gave this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so then I had another ALC. As you can see, mostly audiobooks this week. I just had a really hard time physically reading. But I listened to Duke of Pryde by Mariah Stone. And this is the 3rd book in the 7 Dukes of Sin series. This is my first book from this author and in this series, but I have seen it going around. And I really wanted to sign up because, you know, I love historical romance and I wanted to try a new to me historical romance author that is a newer author too. So I ended up getting this one from Valentine PR. And I had a good time with it. It didn't blow me away, but I think I listened to it in a day. I really enjoyed the setup, everything like that. So in this, you kind of have like these dukes with the 7 deadly sin type of, you know, names. So this one's Duke of Pryde. So of course he's going to have the pride issues. This is Constantine. He is Duke of Pryde. And then this is a romance with Modesty. So the name thing is kind of a little over the top, but whatever. So in this, Constantine is actually being blackmailed because somebody is threatening to expose that he may not be a legitimate heir and all this stuff that's going on. So he is in a bad place. And then he gets a letter about this child. And Modesty goes to him basically because a woman had come and died during childbirth, and she's a daughter of a vicar, and she helped her through that, and so she basically became kind of like the guardian to this child. She promised the woman that she would watch over this child, take care of him, and all of that, and the lady had told her that it was Constantine's, like, to go to Constantine. Now, this isn't really Constantine's child, but he doesn't tell her that. But she's like wanting him to do the right thing and take in this child, and he doesn't want really anything to do with it. But as he's getting blackmailed and this child has ties to his family and could be like the heir, he decides he needs to get this child under his care to be his ward or whatever. And now she's like, I don't want you to do that because you're not looking after this child, because he basically just comes to get the kid. And she's like, I promised that I would look after this child and I'm not going to abandon him. And so he basically talks her into an arranged marriage so that they could get married and then this child could become his ward and all of that. Now, he is very prideful and very worried about his reputation and who he is, you know, as a duke and all of that. So they end up into an arranged marriage, but they definitely have a huge attraction and they explore that and they have a really great connection. But he like immediately like takes the kid and like hides the kid because of his reputation and just a lot of stuff that weren't the best choices that really piss her off. But like he, you know, eventually kind of is going to tell her the truth of things and how are they going to work through that. So I thought this was cute. I thought it was good. It didn't blow me away. I wasn't totally invested to like a higher extent, but I gave this 4 stars because I liked the writing. I thought it was a good setup. I was interested in the side characters. I really want to get to like the Duke of Excess, like his one. I think will be really great. And there was like a 3rd act kind of interesting development in this. They're trying to find who this blackmailer is. And so I really had a good time with it. I loved how Modesty was like so gung-ho about protecting this child and being there for him. And she really wanted to be a good wife to the Duke too. So Anyways, this one I think I enjoyed more than I probably would have read it if I read it, because it was a fantastic audiobook. This again was narrated by Shane East and Justine Eyre, and I mean Shane East, his British accent is just like, it's perfection. I love it. Like, he was so amazing in this. And Justine Eyre is like always does a fantastic job with historical romance audiobooks. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so then I read an arc. I read Teasing by Bella Matthews. And this one is the 5th book in the Red Lips and White Lies book series. Now, I was so behind on getting this read. Unfortunately, like, they gave the arc like 2 days before it released. And I was trying to finish up Victoria Lum's book. And then I just was so, like, I just had such a difficult time physically reading this week. So this took me longer to get through this book than it usually does for Bella Matthews, but I still really loved it. Bella Matthews writes really great, like, found family sports romances with like other like emotional aspects to it that I just love her characters. She always writes an amazing hero that like I fall in love with in each of her books. So Maverick is the hero in this. Maverick, I think, is Beneventi, if I'm saying the last name right. I can't remember. And then we have Emmy, and he is a pro football player. He is a single dad, and he just moved in next door to Emmy. Emmy is, her family is very complicated. She has a lot going on in her life. Her father has early onset dementia, so she's constantly going to visit her father. Her brother actually plays football, but he just transferred, so he's returned back home now, and he's going to be playing for the same football team as Maverick. But the reason she meets Maverick is because his daughter just keeps coming over to her house. They are next door neighbors, and Maverick lives with his brother, and then like one of his best friends who's basically like a brother. So they all 3 live over there, and he's very broody and grumpy and all of that. But his daughter immediately is smitten with Emmy and constantly wants to invite her over for like dinners and things like that. And then his whole nanny situation kind of falls through with one of his family members because she's going to be traveling for the summer. And so he actually, he offers like the nanny position to Emmy, and she basically comes and helps take care of the daughter. She does like a part-time ballet class too, that she does ballet. So she starts being his daughter's nanny. And so this is just a really sweet, cute romance, because Maverick quickly like loses his attitude and his broody behavior and is smitten for Emmy, and he's very protective over her and wants to take care of her. And she actually didn't really want to get in any relationships because she's worried that she will have the same gene as her father and she'll start losing memories, or she doesn't want to bring that into his and his daughter's life. But she quickly can't like deny their connection, and so they start to see each other. So it was very, very cute. It did have some emotional aspects with everything that went on with her family and her father and everything. But I loved Maverick in this. He was so swoony. And I'm so excited because we're finally going to be getting to Maddox's book next. And he's one of the Beneventis that I've like been really wanting the book from. So I'm very excited for that one. So this one was just very cute, very easy, low angst, sweet, spicy romance. So I ended up giving it 5 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so the last book was another ALC. I actually listened to this yesterday all day while I was like cleaning my mom's house and just doing chores, and I was so impressed with it because I've never read this author. So this is Cross-Checked by Julia Connors. This is the 3rd book in the Boston Rebels series, and I definitely want to look into the other books because I just love this author's writing and this like group of, hockey players, and it was just very sweet, and I was really impressed with this one. So in this, we have McGabe, who that's like his last name. So everybody calls him McGabe, but his first name's Ronan, and AJ. And AJ is actually older than him. I think they have like maybe a 7-year age difference. She's a little bit older. She's 40, and she's like the first female general manager of a hockey team. And so she's really worked her ass off. Her life is like all about her career. And she is actually in negotiations with Ronan and everything for his contract, and he might be leaving the team and all of that. Now we have kind of like an enemies to lover situation going on here, because like he hates her, and she gets hateful towards him because of like how he won't do what she asks him to. He kind of fights back on every little thing. And the reason he disliked her was years ago, he was on a team and he actually beat the shit out of her husband at the time. They're not married anymore, but because he was being very disrespectful to AJ, so he beat the shit out of her, and then she traded him. And so he felt very betrayed and kind of screwed over. And then now she's the GM of his team, and they just don't get along. Well, things take a change because he is actually a single dad of this 10-month-old. And I just love this. Like, he is such a sweet dad. Just trying to figure it out with a baby. Like, this is a baby, you know, not usually you read the single dads where they're like older kids. Like, he's got a baby. So that's a lot of work. And he kind of had this nanny that was a flake, and she didn't show up when she was supposed to. So he was going to had to take his, baby with him to a game. And so he didn't know what he was going to do. And so she actually had to like watch the baby and everything. And so this happened like a couple times. And one time she was in the stands, kind of an area, and a fight broke out, and she ended up like moving to protect the baby, but ended up like breaking her arm or whatever. And so she was actually going to need help. And so he offers for her to like stay with him, and he wants to help her out. And she also is his neighbor, which he never realized before. So they live right across from each other. And so this kind of opens up things up for them where they're spending a lot of time together. She goes on the road with the team all the time too, as the GM, and they end up like having some special moments. So they start to like really stop with the enemies and realize how amazing they both are, and that they're like perfect together. And it was just so freaking sweet, and it was swoony, and it was romantic, and I just loved it. Like, I loved the hero. I loved how strong this heroine was. But there was big stakes for them being together. So they had to be like in secret, because she's the GM and she's up for this huge award and be like the first woman to win this award. And if she's like found to be sleeping with one of her, or be in a relationship with one of her guys on her team, that would look really bad on her. And, you know, and they're doing his contract and everything. And so it's like, it's bad. Like, they both want to actually go public. And I do appreciate this, because she didn't hide it from like her boss. She like told him pretty quickly. So I really loved that, because I hate it when like they keep things secret and they don't want to tell anybody. So I really loved that about this. I just loved this. I loved how gone for her he gets, and he really pursues her and woos her. And like, he's pissed because like nobody ever took care of her before, and he really steps up and just wants to like treat her like a queen. And, you know, there's also some infertility issues, because she actually can't have kids, and that was a big issue with her and her ex. And he's just completely understanding. She's so good with his baby that like he sees like she is like going to be such an amazing mom and all of that. So this guy was just super swoony, and I loved it. I loved this couple and how strong they were together. So I, of course, gave this one 5 stars. So I think I only had like 1 4-star this week, and everything else was 5 stars. So it was pretty crazy. Even though I didn't really physically read as much, I read a lot of 5 stars, and they were really, really good. So this one, again, 5 stars and 3 chilies. Oh, and this was narrated by Sebastian York and Angelina Roca, and duet narration, which was fantastic. I loved the audiobook. It was very well done. Couldn't put it down. blasted through it like super quickly in a day. Had such a great time with it. So anyways, those are the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You know, leave me a comment down below and like the video. And I will see you guys on the next one.